Welcome back to another episode with me, your host, George from George on Sports. And on today's show, we have Eric Jackson, sports writer for Sporticos. Eric, how are you, sir?
George, thank you for having me on. I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great.
I got to say, first things first, Super Bowl, it's happened, it's over. There's no more football until September. We do have the draft, we do have the combine, we do have all the off-season madness. But that Super Bowl, you were there for the week leading up to the Super Bowl, the media row, as it's now known as, it's no more radio row. Talk to me about the vibe in Arizona, the atmosphere, and also your thoughts on the game too.
Yeah, no, the atmosphere in Phoenix was electric this past week. And, you know, not just because of the Super Bowl, but you have the Waste Management, big golf tournament going on at the same time. You also have the Kevin Durant news that's dropped while everybody's in town as well. Phoenix Suns just got Kevin Durant as well. So, yeah, you can imagine the energy was high. You know, first time Phoenix had a Super Bowl since 2015. So you can just, you know, a warm place for, you know, for people to congregate. So it was great. And as far as the game go, I think it was, you know, one of those legendary games again. You know, I think it came right down to the finish. And obviously, I think the penalty towards the end there was pretty controversial, you know, but yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, I mean, what more can you say, right? You know, watching a young legend literally put his work together and before our eyes. So yeah, it's you know,
yeah,
cool.
I mean, I was backing the Eagles in this one, but I'm always aware of the threat of the boys in red, Andy Reid, big Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Mahomes. And, you know, sometimes you kind of think, well, you know, it happened in the game against the Buccaneers where, albeit Mahomes was injured, but, you know, sometimes they just don't show that spark. And I thought, as the Eagles, this is going to be the story, you know, Jalen Hurts being benched in the championship for Tua and everything like that. And he comes back and wins the Super Bowl. And it didn't happen. Who were you rooting for in this game?
Well, you know, I just like a good game. Two black quarterbacks was great to see for the first time in the Super Bowl. And, you know, I wouldn't have minded to see Jalen get one. You know, his first time, youngest guy to play in the Super Bowl. And so that would have been cool. But, yeah, man, I like a good game. I have no dog in the hunt.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like I said, it's just really cool to see this run Mahomes is on right now. You know, 2 titles in the last, you know, 4 years or so. So it's, yeah, man, it was a really great game.
And a good game it was, absolutely. One for the ages. Now, I'm going to get straight to it because I came across an article written by yourself titled What's Next? And the moment I saw the article, had a quick read and thought, wow, this is my kind of jam. I need to find out who wrote this article because we need to have a conversation. And lo and behold, here we are. So, I mean, the NFL, as someone who's obsessed with the NFL, someone who's played at an amateur level in the UK for a decent amount of time, and yourself who's so invested in the sport, this is the kind of information that I like to read because I like to know exactly what you titled this article, what is next. And I have to say, some of these numbers and some of these stats and some of the things that we have coming up are absolutely mind-blowing. So just to stop people who haven't read this article, please go and read this article over at Sportico because if you're an NFL fan, I promise you want to read it. Some of the things that jumped out to me, which I just feel like continues to happen year on year on year, is the growth of this train, this conglomerate, this business that's the NFL. We have this phrase, I think you have it too, that, you know, NFL stands for nothing lasts for long. But the NFL seems like it's going to be lasting for a very long time. I mean, 130 billion in new media deals, TV ratings are up, attendance is up. I'm going to come to the IHMA, which is the International Home Market Area, which was announced, I believe it was a couple of years ago now. And it's the NFL's attempt to broaden the sport further than the US. So you have the Bears, the Jags, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Vikings, and that's one of the ways that the league, I think, use it as their research development. Something you wrote in your article.
Right.
Talk to me about the IHMA and the long-term plans of what the NFL hope to do with that.
Yeah, so the International Series has been around, right, since 2007. First time we came to the UK, right, the first game. After the NFL Europe, right, they shut that down. There's a whole long thing there, but they kind of repivot with International Series in 2007. But yeah, last year they launched the home marketing areas, which is really a complement, right, to the International Series. So instead of just having games, one-off games every year in the UK and Mexico City and Germany, now you have they grant the opportunity for teams to, set up shop basically in designated countries, right, where they can do marketing pop-ups, watch parties. Potentially you might even see brick and mortar actual brick and mortar stores, where team gear and everything else would be sold. So,
Yeah.
This is another just move, right, for the NFL and their whole globalization strategy, right? So instead of just having the games, if you can fill that in with year-round engagement and activation, it's not something that pays dividends really early on, but the league is interested in long-term growth, right? It's just different than a lot of, public companies or even private entities, right? Willing to lose some money now for the long-term, return. So,
Yeah.
It's, you have 19 teams already of the 32 that are involved right now, and I'm sure that number will grow. Teams can apply to get a home marketing area in the spring. So, you might see that 19 number increase this coming spring. So, yeah, man, it's really interesting to see just from China all the way over to Ghana and Africa, right? The teams are dispersed all over the world.
Yeah, and I'll say this firsthand. I've actually witnessed that this does work. Sort of Vikings have a big presence over here in the UK. I think they have a separate UK Instagram page and a following. And last year, before they took on the Saints, I believe, at Tottenham Stadium, we had Daniel Hunter and KJ Osborne come over as part of the Vikings UK link. And that actually went down. I think I received an email because I'd signed up to the IHMA scheme, and it was would you like to come and meet the players? And yeah, of course I would. So the proof is in the pudding. You say, it's a matter of research and development, taking a bit of a loss now to further grow the game long term. And I have no doubt that it will come to fruition. And there's an example of that happening there. But you mentioned something which I want to touch on too, which is NFL Africa. I actually had conversations with a lady called Benny Bonsu, who is the Olympic daily content director, who knows a guy called O.C. Manura. Obviously, we all know who O.C. is, two-time Super Bowl winner with the New York Giants, and how NFL Africa started with a brief conversation and why it wasn't already a thing. And when I think about it, it is actually quite interesting that we don't already have something like NFL Africa. So it's great that it's come around. I believe the Eagles are the only team who are partnered with a country in Africa right now. Hence, you see a lot of marketing with the Eagles and Ghana. The whole of Ghana was supporting the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I can tell you that for sure because I've seen that all over social media. But again, it just seems that the NFL have their fingers in so many different pies, and I don't see this train ever coming to a stop at any point. It's just incredible. It really is incredible.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. It's the league is, it's right now you're seeing teams making about 6 to 7 figure investment right now. Some teams I think it's getting close to even that. As much as 8, right? So, some teams are not as interested and, kind of spending their money to market. And then you have others who are really interested, right? Like I mentioned the Niners in there. And, so it works for certain teams. It just works more, right? And others not so much. Yep. But overall, the league is making a huge push. And you'll even notice after the Chiefs win, right? Derek, the DN, Derek Nadi, I believe his name is, right? He was wearing the huge Nigerian flag, you know what I mean? He was talking about, so those are the moments that, the league wants to catch, right? Like, because the league has realized that, new fans really, they attach to players, right? More so than necessarily the teams themselves. So if you can find a guy who is from, Ghana or you're more inclined to follow him, right, through the league, right? So that might make you, in this case with Derek, someone from Nigeria, seeing him waving that flag after a championship, you might spark that 12-year-old who saw that, right? And like, wow, I'm going to be a Chiefs fan now, right? It's like, it's those small things that, a new fan just might come across and, and just as simple as that, it's like, all right, you're locked in now, right? So
yeah,
they're making big pushes.
It goes hand in hand, and it's quite a nice segue actually into one of the programs that the NFL currently run, the International Player Pathway Program, which allows people from all over the world. I mean, if you look at Eagles left tackle Jordan Mailata at the minute, who signed a huge deal with the Eagles after coming off that exact program, similar to Efe Obada, a UK guy who came off the program. Christian Wade was a guy who also did the same. Like you say, the guy, Frank, yesterday with the Nigerian flag, you can hear the accent, it's almost like he's still raw, but he's now won a Super Bowl. and you're now thinking about people who are going to apply for this international player pathway program. And there are loads of Nigerians currently, actually, and Ghanaians on the program, who, without a doubt, will be looking at Frank and say, you know what, he's done it. There's no reason I can't do the exact same thing. And I think those are little ways that the NFL are being clever and trying to not only grow the game, but grow influence of the game across the borders. One thing that stood out for me is the fact that the NFL accounted for 82 of the 100 most watched TV broadcasts in America last year, something from your article. And that number is increasing. When you pair that with the fact that I think the average NFL fan age is around 50, I think it is.
Right, exactly.
There's just so much happening. I mean, every year I say to myself and I say to my peers, that season was the best season ever. No, last season was the best season ever. And I just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again, which goes to show that something clearly is working. One thing that's working really well is flag football. Now, we would have seen the advert last night. Her name escapes me, so I apologize. The superstar who had her trailer put on for the world to see. It's just insane. Flag football, which they're trying to get into the Olympics for 2028, is taking off at a huge rate. Now, what I will say to that is there has been a reduction, again, from the article, a reduction in number of children playing 11-11 full contact sport stateside. Now, as someone who has kids, as someone who played the sport, albeit not at the NFL level, I can kind of understand why that is. You know, you look at what can happen in terms of concussions, injuries, and CTE. But flag football, there is no stopping that. When you target that Gen Z, I think it's only going to go one way, which is up.
Right. Well, you saw the Pro Bowl now is featuring flag football, right? A big change. And, you know, that change isn't a coincidence, right? It just speaks to how important it is for the league to get flag football off the ground. And, there's been a talk for a while having the youth playing flag football, but when you're seeing the best football players in the world, running after each other's belts and everything else, it just shows the league is really trying to make that push, right? So, and you've seen it here in the States, they've gone a long way of just pushing girls flag football and getting that, a sanctioned varsity sport. It's always been club in a lot of ways, but now it's actually like an actual varsity sport. You can win a championship, a state title in the States here, which is a big deal. Mm-hmm. So, and the league's been a part of that push. Also, they're pushing to get it in the Olympics, right, 2028 in Los Angeles here. So a lot of investment going to flag football, and that really ties into this whole international. It really does. And you mentioned the ad on the Super Bowl, Diana Flores, who was mentioned on that. And, it goes hand in hand with each other. It really does. Because really, if you want to capture that next, with the Gen Z audience is being so fragmented on TV and cut cording and streaming, flag football just presents that opportunity to keep the game flowing, right? Especially in the wake of some bad news and the DeMar Hamlin case and Tua, and some of the concussion stories are still, very much relevant. So, if you can harness that impact and you sort of highlight safer ways to play, I mean, that's their playbook right there.
Absolutely, no doubt. And I think, again, it is there and it's clear for everybody to see. But another thing, and quite some recent news as well, is that this idea of doing hybrid deals in terms of being able to promote and market the sport, not only within the US, but also across the water. So recently, I think it was a couple of weeks ago now, the DAZN, they've signed a huge deal with the NFL to be able to control Game Pass and broadcast Game Pass outside of the US. Now, Game Pass is a huge part of this cog in the wheel for people to be able to watch the NFL. I use it myself a lot, not only for like the All-22, but for the condensed games. It's very, very good. It's a great product. To be able to now sign a deal with a company like that, I think speaks volumes. DAZN, who only recently signed a deal with Amazon as well. On top of that, you've got YouTube, who I think last year or year before that signed a 7-year deal.
Right, that was last year, yep. There'll be some news too on that in terms of international capability. So no, for sure. And then DAZN that's a big deal, it might not be huge in terms of dollar figure, but from reach, it's really big deal. I mean, it's, basically they already had that deal in terms of its relationship with Canada, but now expanding it worldwide, right? I mean, that's really impressive for sure. Just getting NFL Game Pass in more hands, people worldwide, because the league really looks at that. NFL Game Pass international subscriptions or a big metric, right? So now, with the zone deal, it's gonna, that's gonna rise, and then you have the Sky Sports deal, which expires, 2025. That's gonna be another one. I'm sure that dollar figure number, in a couple of years will look a lot different than the current one. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Well, I mean, if ratings are going up and viewers are watching and attendance is up, then everything else seemingly will also go up too. And that even goes to speak with the Gen Z that you mentioned earlier. It's the first time that I can recall seeing NFL being featured in games like Fortnite, with Justin Jefferson being the first guy. I mean, he had the gritty, which completely took over the entire game of Fortnite. Roblox, there's an announcement with Roblox recently. It's just if there's a way for the NFL to try and spread its wings almost. Sorry, Philly fans, that's not a shot. That's just, sorry. Spread its wings to try and grow the game and influence. They're going to find it. In terms of growth, Germany is one of the places that I've keyed in on, just because I had a conversation with Brett Gosper, the CEO of NFL International, and one of the things that he said to me was how huge the German market is. Now, not a lot of people will know this, but when we have the London games over here, we do get loads of people traveling in from Germany, from France, from Spain to come to the UK to watch these games, which kind of, it's a light bulb moment. In comes Germany, who have a bigger fan base than the UK, both casual and hardcore. Not to mention the fact that Germany has its own league and has had its own domestic league for so many years in the GFL. I have friends who actually play in the GFL, and they set out 40,000 stadia. It's crazy. So we obviously have 2 games announced in Germany this year, 3 games here in the UK, like we normally do. It's just non-stop action for the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you have one of those games is featuring Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, right? So perfect timing for the Chiefs to win that. Now they come to the Germany, right, later this year, and they already have a business relationship with Bayern Munich, so there couldn't be a better time in terms of their international push to win the title and head over there. And Patrick's an Adidas guy, right, which has ties to Germany too. So there's so many different things that you can make the most of this opportunity with, and like you said, Germany is just a lot of people don't realize roughly 9% of the people attending the UK games, right, travel from Germany, right? So that's one of the things where the league was like, maybe this is a market that we should be tapping into, and sure enough, they did, right? Opening office there. I mean, they're all in terms of, growing that presence out in NFL, out in Germany, and obviously a big economic power too, right? So there's just, you'll notice that if you can tap into that, that's huge, between Munich and Frankfurt and other places in Germany. So, yeah, man, it's, I think NFL Europe sort of set that foundation, right? Like, that's the thing. A lot of this isn't new, right? You got to kind of go back and, the Rainfire used to do really well. And, so, Dusseldorf is where they're opening the NFL office, right? And that's where one of the most successful cities of where the NFL Europe was. So, there's a foundation that's already set over there in Europe, or in Germany, I'm sorry.
So, Roger Goodell, there's always this talk about expanding and having a franchise here in the UK. I just want your thoughts on that, whether, one, you think it could happen, and why? Because it seems, they talk about it quite a lot. Clearly, you can see what the obstacles would be, but they do seem to keep coming back to this notion of a franchise in the UK. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all of this seems to eventually, the long-term play does eventually seem for the league to eventually have a team that is stationed there, right? Actually plays regular games there. And, obviously Jacksonville Jaguars have always been sort of the, if people were to name a team, that would be just because of Shad Khan and his relationship with the UK, owns Fulham, and, 2012, he decided to play every year at Wembley Stadium and moving forward. So, he really embraced the UK early on. And so the Jacksonville Jaguars have always been, but it's interesting, right? I mean, we'll see, because they are investing heavily in Jacksonville area. So, who knows if that actually will happen. But you're right. If there was an international team, the market that makes the most sense is the UK, just because that's sort of been the blueprint for other countries, right? Like, I would be shocked if there was an international team that got one, but before the UK did. So, So absolutely. I mean, Roger hinted at it, during the London games earlier this year, and so I think eventually we will get there. Now, I don't hold your breath because I don't think that's coming anytime soon. But you're absolutely right. I think the relates to investments, in Wembley and Tottenham's their stadium just got one. It just hosted the game. So yeah, I think eventually that's where we're gonna get to.
So knowing what you know about the NFL and where it's headed, what's the single most exciting prospect that's yet to come that you would say is going to be huge for the NFL? I mean, it could be something that's already been announced, like Dazan, or what would you say is the most exciting potential prospect that the league could be looking to dive into? And just how big do you think the NFL could actually become?
And from a globalization standpoint, it was kind of what you mentioned, when we started here, right? Like, football, obviously, in America is king. I mean, that's, 82 out of 100. I mean, it's king. But the thing is, right, in Europe and other places, right, I mean, soccer and other sports are king, right? So I think the league still has to battle with, is this a novelty thing, right? Or is this just a one-off sort of, oh, that was cool, and, or is this something that really people are going to gravitate to and be fans, active fans, right? Like the NFL right now, they're trying to turn the casual fan to the active fan. And I think their efforts in being able to achieve that that's what's going to determine how quickly this growth is, 5-10 years down the road, right? So, turning that casual fan to the active one, that's key there. And that's ultimately going to decide if a team does eventually come to, the UK or if the NFL draft is done out in London and instead of here in the States, or you know what I mean? Those are all going to be determining factors, right? Turning that casual into an active fan.
Well, I think it's fair to say there's a lot of exciting things coming for the NFL and to all the NFL fans, worldwide. I think it's a crazy time because we just seem to be treated year after year after year by some kind of news, some kind of development, some kind of new feature. And it just means that the game is just going to become better for us. I mean, it's no wonder the NFL cap just keeps increasing year on year on year. But Eric, thank you for exactly.
They're not short of cash, man, for sure. And the NFL is not the first to do this, right? The NBA's had a lot of success with globalization. You have players like Giannis. When the NBA got Yao Ming, I mean, that was huge for business over in China, right? So when you can find somebody, and it's different with football, you have a helmet on and visibility is a little different in marketing, but when you can have stars to come over, player pathway and everything we've mentioned, I mean, those do more for you that's priceless marketing, you know what I mean? That does more than a watch party or, so, keep your eye on that too. The more international players being developed. I mean, all of these things are just like, contributing factors. So yeah, we'll see for sure.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Eric. I was really excited to have this conversation just because there's so many crazy things coming up. To the viewers, let the people know where they can find you, where they can find your work. Yeah,
you guys can follow me at EP Jackson at EP Jackson on Twitter, Instagram, and yeah, for sure, please, and make sure you read Sportico. And George, I appreciate you for having me on, man. That's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, absolutely. And like Eric said, do go check out Sportico. They put out some amazing stats, things that you probably aren't aware of that are happening in the NFL, which you should be aware of because, trust me, things are just going up every single season. But I've been George from George on Sports here with Eric Jackson from Sporticos, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, man. Take care.